I'd like to call the Bluff City Board of Mayor and Alderman special call meeting to order Tuesday, September the 12th, 2017 at 2 p.m. Sharon, roll call. I'm sorry. Mr. Fry, do you want to make a comment?
I would advise the board not to comment on or discuss anything that's currently going through the court system.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please, Sharon.
Alderwoman Madison.
Here.
Alderman Stratton.
Here.
Alderman Harrison.
Here.
Alderman Bowling.
Here.
Okay. And the next thing on the agenda is a prayer by Alderman Jack Stratton, and immediately following, pledge allegiance to the flag.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we take this time to call upon you. God, and whatever we do today may it be pleasing to you. And God, just thank you for the people who took time to get out and voice and just, God, we pray that we'll come together and do what is best for Bluff City. Forgive us of all our sins. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the next thing on the agenda is citizen comments. The first session. Come to the podium, give your name, address, and phone number. Okay. If we don't have any comments, we'll move on to Bluff City Stormwater Review by Todd Wood.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you again. I think we have one new face since I was here last September.
I think I was here.
Were you here? Okay, well, good. Then I don't have to go over everything. Basically, once a year, come here and give you a chance, the public a chance to express any thoughts, issues, concerns, improvements for the stormwater program. Now, you've got the construction stormwater part of it, education, public involvement, illicit discharge, and good housekeeping, which is basically the town itself doing things that the public has to do and the development community has to do. Pretty much the same as we were last year, except we have gone through a new permit cycle. So in February, we worked with the mayor, sent the new permit off to the state where we have a permit for the next 5 years, doing essentially the same thing we were doing before. One thing that may or may not change is in the construction part of it with the what's called permanent stormwater management, or some people call it water quality. We're going to have to update those regulations possibly and then sometime in the next couple years. We were supposed to do it a few years ago, but the state kept postponing that because of the new permit. Plus, there's some lawsuits that have been filed, and the lawsuits are being heard sometime in November. And once that's heard, then if everything goes the way the state thinks it's going to go, starting in January 1, we'll have 90 days to submit a plan that says when we're going to change our water quality regulations to meet the state regulations. And we have, I think, up to 18 months from that point to do it. But if something happens with the lawsuit that doesn't go in the direction the state thinks it's going to go, who knows what will happen at that point. It could be another postponement, or it might be rewritten. So we will keep you up to date on that. Everything else is essentially the same. What we'll be focusing a lot on this year with the mayor and the staff is education and public involvement. She's been doing a good job of getting brochures out to the schools and to some restaurants and some other places where people congregate to get information out to them. But we need to do a little bit more with that. The other thing is to be writing detailed pollution prevention plans for the town, for all the town-owned facilities. The town does a good job of good housekeeping. I've said that in years past, and it's still the same. So with that, that's just a quick summary. If anybody has any questions, more than willing to answer.
Does anybody have any questions?
I have to just, because we're supposed to do this public meeting, maybe it's more the chairman's or the mayor's role, if there's anybody in the public, too, that's here that wants to speak about it.
Does anybody in the public have a question? Okay. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is discussion/action of the first reading on ordinance number 2017-011. Mr. Fry.
An ordinance to amend ordinance number 2017-007, known as the appropriation ordinance for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. Whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen deem it necessary to complete the McClellan Street project for the health, safety, and welfare for the citizens of the town of Bluff City, and whereas the contract price for the project is $178,380, whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen wish to pay cash for this project, be it therefore ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of the town of Bluff City, Tennessee, that ordinance 2017-007 as to line item 413 Water and Sewer Fund be amended as follows. $959,579. This ordinance shall take effect from and after its final passage of public welfare requiring it.
Sharon, do you have a comment at this time?
And no, not unless they have a question. We just decided on cash since it went to the 178,000. I mean, like it says there on the ordinance.
Does anybody have a question? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to accept.
Take a vote, please.
Alderwoman Madison.
Yes.
Alderman Stratton.
Yes.
Alderman Harrison.
Yes.
Alderman Bowen.
Yes.
Discussion and action. The first reading on ordinance number 2017-010. Mr. Fry.
This is an ordinance to renew the Atmos Energy Corporation's gas franchise for 20 years. It's ready for first reading.
Okay. Does anyone have a motion?
I make a motion to accept this ordinance.
Do we have a second? Take a vote, please.
Alderwoman Madison.
No.
Alderman Stratton.
Yes.
Alderman Harrison.
Yes.
Alderman Bowen.
Yes.
Okay, we're down to discussion and action on the hire water plant operator, and I'll bring you up to date. Our water plant operator called me late on last week on Saturday night at 9:30 and told me that he was upset because he had not renewed his water operator's license. And I told him, I said, I don't understand how anyone would let the water license run out. But I told him that there wasn't anything that I could do about the situation until on Monday. But I was worried enough to know that the city, Bluff City, could not be without a certified water operator. So I went ahead and I called Teresa, who has helped us out in the past. She's a certified operator, and I asked her if she would be our certified operator until we could get something taken care of. And of course, she came over on Monday and started working on the plant. Dean did not give us a notice. The next morning, he just didn't come in to work. And he's more or less calling other people and telling them that he was quitting, but he did not call me or Alan and let us know that he was no longer going to work for the city. So that brings us down to discussing what we can do. Yesterday, I talked with 2 water operators, one from Kingsport and one from Bristol. The one from Kingsport had let his license run out in January. He retired in January. And he had let it run out, and I asked him if he was willing to try to have his license renewed, but he said he was tired, so he didn't want to do it. And then the one from Bristol, his license will run out in January, but he thought that it would be too much on him. So he decided that he wasn't interested. So what I'm asking you to do is to give me approval to put it in the newspaper to see if we can find someone. And Teresa has agreed to help us out until we can find someone. And the plant was down for a few days, and Teresa was here helping us, and then also we had someone else here that helped us out, and so we got the plant back up and operating properly, and so now we just have to move on to see if we can find someone. So I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm going to mention something to you on what we was paying Dean. We was paying Dean $25 an hour for total wages of $52,000 a year, but including his benefits and everything, it was $66,234 for a total. And that's having a full-time employee. We really don't feel like we need a full-time employee for the water operator. We feel like we can do it with 4 hours a day. And if we pay that person $30 an hour, that would be $31,200. And we know that we can't get anyone, a certified operator, for less than that. And the net savings to us, if we can find a part-time person, would be about $35,000. Do you?
You'll have that operator with 2 different licenses, one for your distribution,
Yes.
one for your water treatment.
Yeah, he'll have to have 2 licenses. So I just need y'all to approve for me to hire someone and also put it in the paper. So do I have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Take a vote, please.
Alderwoman Madison.
Before I answer, Dean came to my house and said, Mary, you knew that he lost his license, said that y'all talked about it, said you was going to cut his pay or something like that. He wrote a letter out or something like that, and that's what he told me.
Well, like I told you before, he called me. I called Teresa after I had talked with him, and Teresa was working as the certified operator because the city cannot be without one.
Mm-hmm.
We started out trying to work with him, and then the next thing I know, he was calling people around town saying that that he couldn't work with me. And anyway, so he told people that he was going to quit. In fact, he told he left a message for Alderman Bolin. Is that correct?
I actually talked to him too.
Yeah, okay. And he said that he was resigning. So this is where we are now, and we need to move on. So did we get a second on the motion?
I did.
Okay, take a vote, please.
Alderwoman Madison.
No.
Alderman Stratton.
Yes.
Alderman Harrison.
Yes.
Alderman Bowling.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing we have on the agenda is the second session of citizens' comments. Anyone that has a comment, come to the podium, give name, address, and phone number.
Hi, my name is Carol Keith. I live 305 Lakeview Circle, Bluff City, Tennessee. I wasn't going to say anything, but I would like to ask, Mary, did you cut Dean's pay 25%?
I did cut Dean's
You
pay.
cut it. Okay.
Yes,
then.
I did.
All
I
right.
can't.
Board,
have
did
some-
you all know that she cut his pay 25%?
I didn't.
You did, and you had no problem with that. You know, I asked you, and I don't want to cause problems. I stand for what's right. I stand for what's right regardless of what anybody thinks. But I would like to ask the board, and I've asked you before anybody can be fired or if they have a problem, can't they come to the board? Can't they present it to the board? If it's an appeal, can't they come before the board and the board make the final decision? Is that wrong to ask? I mean, no disrespect, but there's a problem when everybody's having a problem with you, and I'm not trying to be ugly, but I stand with the people. Miss Alderman Bolin, I appeal to you guys not as my board members, but as my brothers and sisters in Christ. Stand for what is right. If there is a problem, can't they come to you and talk to you, and you will stand with them? That's all we need, is somebody that's going to stand for what's right. The man got his pay cut 25%.
I had to hire somebody for $30 just because he didn't
But
renew
you
his
cut
license.
his pay.
Of course
cut
I
his
cut his
pay.
pay.
Cut
Yes.
his pay because he had let his license run.
He let his license run out. And I had to
We
pay
were full of
somebody
excuses. Well,
$30. I mean,
I asked, would you bring it in for a vote, Alderman Stratton, that if anybody has an appeal for, say, somebody got fired, and Irene was the one, Mary was the one that fired him, and they feel like they had a legit reason, would you be willing to sit on the board and listen to that person?
I don't know is that
You-
question.
okay.
I would.
Let
No.
me make a statement on what
Please
I'm trying
do.
to say. It's my understanding, though, that he let his license run out.
What-
Well, I mean,
I
just what I
understand.
hear, just like you.
But don't you think that you should have spoke to him about it? It's to see, did anybody talk to him to
Well,
see
that
what
would
really
be more
happened?
up to
I know
him.
he reached out to you.
You know, it'd be more up to him to come before the board and present it to us.
Yeah. That's what I'm asking.
Well, he didn't do that.
I know I'm asking that now, like if somebody has a problem and they want to appeal, can they come before the board to appeal the problems? If not, then I can say you're fired, and there's no in-betweens, no nothing. Is that the way it's going to be?
Well, we voted one time. Your 3 minutes is up. Let me make a comment on that.
Well, yes, my
We-
3 minutes is up, Mr. Bolin, and
I'm
thank
just
you.
listening.
You don't have to answer.
Okay.
I would like to say something also, Richard. I didn't fire him. He
I know
quit.
that. He quit. He told
He
me.
quit. And he
me
told
on the
you and he
phone
told
that
some of the others
quit.
too.
He said that I let my license run out and I can't work with her. And I
Please
said,
be quiet.
All right, Derek.
Does anyone else have a comment?
Carolyn Payne, 4818 Bluff City Highway, 5389108. I spoke with Dean Fields. He renewed his own license, and it was to be effective in October. Why the rush to judgment? Any city, any town pays for the license renewal for their employees. Now, Teresa, I don't know your last name, $30 an hour. Is it my understanding? We only need somebody for 4 hours a day. Is that to run the distribution? Is that what else?
Well, I won't be here 4 hours a day. I will not be here. They're looking to hire someone.
For 4 hours a day. Only a part-time position. Dean Fields worked 8 hours a day, and that's why he was being paid $52,000 a year, because he put in the hours. and he spent 4 hours a day in the ditches with the guys. I am so confused about what you all are doing up here. You couldn't wait until his license got renewed. And what is your responsibility on making sure that your employees' licenses are renewed? Does that not, do you all not, Sharon, do you not get notifications? Nobody gets notifications.
The employees get their own notifications.
They have a heck
And
of
they
a-
usually get them in January, and then they have to, what was it, July to pay for them.
They have a whole lot of responsibility, and it appears as though nobody's covering their backs up here. And that's unfair. And I agree with what Carol Keith said. I can't believe that you all will sit up here and stand behind it. And yes, it is out there. Nobody can work with you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
Teresa Knifer, 150 Mayfield, Elizabeth, in Tennessee, 37643. My phone is 542-2100. I've heard different things, and Dean, I knew Dean, and matter of fact, I recommended Dean when he first came to work here. And things have happened since then, and I have noticed he did not have the energy that he needed to present to do the job that he was doing. Now, on licenses, it is the employee's responsibility, and the state holds that employee, not the county, not the city, that employee, because they're very difficult to get. And every employee that I know that has a license holds those just like it's close to their heart, because they don't want those licenses to fail, to not meet state requirements, or they do not want them to lapse. Now, the lapsing part of the license, Dean did tell me that he did lapse on the payment, and I don't know the ins and outs of what actually happened, but I did call the state office, and she told me that he did put a request in for the certification board, and the certification board meets in October. If that board agreed with his explanation, they may reinstate that, and he could pay the fee at that time. If not, he would have to take his exam again, and that would be either in November or May. And as I do know that he told you, Mayor, that he had planned to just go on and take his exam just in case.
Yes.
So he was planning possibly in November to take that exam again if the certification board denied his re-entry on his license. Now, the certification board, sometimes they are very lenient, and sometimes they're not. I've served as chairman for that board several years ago in Nashville, and it is on a case-to-case basis. If that excuse was not a legitimate excuse, and that means if you said you didn't get your paperwork, that is not a legitimate excuse. All operators know that every year you have to pay a fee, and then you get your new license, and it's good for so many years, plus your CEUs. Now, the license renewals yearly, the CEUs is usually every 3 years, that you have to have so many CEU credits to continuing education to obtain and keep your license. If you renege on any one of those, the state can, and you could lose your license. So it's very important, because it's the livelihood of that operator to make sure that they keep their licenses up to date and their continuing education credits. So I just wanted to clarify that, because most definitely the state did not reinstitute his license. They can't do that until October. And it's a 50-50 deal in October. Even Dean understood that and was planning to take his exam. But I know I saw him the Friday before to check out on how the plant was going after you had called me. and he told me everything was fine. Well, it wasn't as fine as he told me. They were things that he waited to the last days of the month to collect, which is against our SOP, and that's the standard operating procedures that Bluff City has for their operator. And also, by doing that, it put Bluff City, if that sample had come back bad, that put Bluff City in a position that you would have had a public notification and you would have had no way to correct it by waiting so late in the month to collect that, especially on the last day of the month. Also, as a licensed operator, there's different things in different times of the year that we have to collect certain types of state samples and EPA samples. And when I talked to Dean, he said everything was taken care of. Nothing was due, and everything was taken care of, which that was not actually true. And since then, I've been in contact with the state office in Johnson City and the laboratory that furnishes sample bottles, so we can keep up and make sure that those analyses are collected on the dates that they're supposed to. Now, there's a lot of things, going on, but you have to have, the water treatment person doesn't have to have 2 licenses to run a water treatment plant. They only require 1. But Dean also served as your distribution operator, so he was out.
If you want to talk, go in the hallway.
So there's 2 licenses if you want that person to continue being responsible for both. And I do have both of those licenses, and I've trained your personnel for the last 30 years off and on. And it seems like every time that there's a change, either in the board or someone as their supervisor, they tend to revert back to bad habits. And that is the biggest concern that I have, having my license without being here, every single day. And that is a huge issue, to have the analysis and the daily things done correctly, and to ensure that Bluff City has the superb drinking water they should have. And your water quality is at utmost importance. You definitely want to ensure that your customers are getting the best water they can possibly get. And I know that you, and I know you, Mayor, I've dealt with you in the last few years, and you have. I've heard several things about, and 30 years ago, I've dealt with different mayors. But in the last, I was here in 14 and 15, and I'd also heard that. I didn't know you. I'd see you coming in. But after dealing with you, I don't know of another person that would do the job that you're doing, that you work for free, and you care sincerely about the city of Bluff City. Now, I know everybody doesn't understand some of your methods, but there is, a heart there that is for Bluff City. And no matter who it is, she doesn't care a bit to tell you, that she wants to get the best price for Bluff City. She wants to do the best for Bluff City. And I admire you for that. But I do know in one instance for Dean, and they were talking about the salary. And I would have definitely recommended, and I did recommend to the mayor, that I would have cut that salary, because you are no longer paying for a certified operator, and you are going to have to hire one. So from $10 less than what he was making, I think that was what he was cut, or somewhere in that group. But, he was totally responsible for updating his license. And since then, we have talked, and I think Bluff City is going to pick up the tab and ensure, that that's paid. But it's the operator's duty, and if you don't have the care enough about your own license to keep those up and to keep up with your due dates, you don't need to be a water operator of any kind. But most definitely, you've worked very well with the people that I know, and I can't say any more other than you do care for Bluff City. Thank you.
I will say one other thing, which I should have said it sooner. Alan was in the office whenever I told Dean about cutting his salary. And he said, Dean, out of his own mouth, said, I expected my salary to be cut because I'm not a certified operator. So.
Yes, and I'm sure he knew once he got it, it would go back to the.
Yes, I told him that. And nobody said anything about firing him. And he chose, instead of waiting, you was going to be over him. I mean, not over him, but you was going to be the certified operator. He knew that. So it was his choice to go ahead and quit. And he was pretty sorry that he did not give a notice or let anybody know that he was leaving. And I just really appreciate you because of the fact that test was due a week before it was done, and it wasn't supposed to be done that late in the month. And so you really took care of Bluff City, and I really appreciate that. Okay. Does anybody else have any comment?
Dean called me, told me that he could have his license renewed in October, but he said, I'm not going to do it. I cannot work with the mayor. I quit. And that's what he told me on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm not going to have it renewed. I quit. And that's exactly what he told me on the phone. He called me.
Well, he never said anything to me.
Cutting pay. He said, I'm not going to have it renewed. I can't work with her. I quit. And that's what he told me, that he wasn't going to do it. So.
But like I said, Alan was in there when the conversation took place. But Alan is in California. And somebody that don't like somebody, he asked me if he could hug me. And I think I called you and told you, Mr. Frykos, I thought, is this going to be a setup? So I've done all that I can. And my main concern is Bluff City and nothing else. So, does anybody else have a comment? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn? Huh? What?
Remember the 88 plan that you printed out? Did you want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought you was going to talk about why you was up there before.
No, I was just on there.
Okay, well, come on back then.
I'm sorry.
Come on back.
One of the ADA plan, Mayor, we'll have to have that on the next agenda.
Oh, okay. Okay, he said we're going to have it in the next agenda. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. Ray's not here because of the fact that he has a new baby. A boy, 9 pounds.
9?
Yeah.
Yeah, 9 pounds, born Sunday night. Born Sunday night.
Who made the motion to adjourn?
Oh, he didn't tell me the ounces. He just said 9 pounds.
22 5.5. So he had a walk. She had a walk. And she has
Okay.
Alderman Stratton,
Yes.
Alderman Harrison,
Yes.
Alderman Bowler.
Yes.